I'm not sure what hurts more, losing a 5-year project overnight, or realizing the man who killed it is drinking pina coladas in Hawaii with a coworker he swore he barely knew. I didn't plan on telling anyone this. Honestly, I didn't plan on saying anything at all. But when you sit at the funeral of something you built from scratch, something you sacrifice weekends, sleep, and pieces of yourself for, silence starts feeling like betrayal. Not of the company, of yourself. So here I am, outside conference room B, holding a paper cup of stale coffee while the rest of the team files into the final review and closure meeting. Corporate language for bury it quietly and pretend it never mattered. 5 years of my life reduced to a 45-minute slideshow and a goodbye email, drafted by someone who never touched a line of our work. I should be bitter. I should be angry. Instead, I just feel empty, like someone scooped out the inside and left the shell walking around on autopilot. The worst part, he's not even here. My boss. The man who promised we were months from breakthrough, who insisted we keep pushing, who asked us to trust him when the budget got tighter and the deadline slipped. This final meeting was supposed to be his responsibility, his closure, his explanation, except he's out of state on urgent personal matters. That's what his assistant said in the group chat at 8:12 a.m. Except 5 minutes before the meeting, a photo pops up on Instagram. Not posted by him, he's not that stupid, but by her, the one he always defended, the one he always called just ambitious, just driven, just misunderstood. Her bikini beach sunset cocktail, tagged location Maui, and next to her, a man's hand around her waist, his hand, the same watch I gifted him as a team anniversary present, stainless steel, blue dial, limited edition. I'd recognize it even in a blur. The kind of detail that punches the air out of your lungs, not because of romance. I don't care who he sleeps with. But because it tells you everything you weren't supposed to see. Everything he hid while we burned ourselves out, keeping his promises afloat. Inside the room, someone coughs. Someone else whispers, "Should we start without him?" The projector hums to life. I sit down in the corner, keeping my head low, flipping through a copy of the final report, like it still means something, like it didn't get murdered 3 levels above my pay grade. The new department head walks in, the one assigned to oversee transition. She looks tense, overly formal, reading a script someone else handed her. As of last quarter, the board has determined the project no longer aligns with strategic company goals. I stop listening. I'm staring at the timeline on the screen. The milestones we hit, the ones we missed, the sudden cancellations nobody explained, the cracks we all felt months ago finally showing in straight, clean lines across the slide. Then something catches my eye. A signature. A tiny digital scribble at the bottom of an approval request. One I've seen 1,000 times. One I know by heart. Except the date doesn't match. It's stamped for the week he told us he was in Chicago, meeting the board. The same week he disappeared for 2 days without answering emails. The same week we were forced to halt production because legal needed more documentation. It doesn't make sense. He couldn't have signed that file. He wasn't even in the building, unless he wasn't in Chicago at all. My pulse picks up, quick but controlled. I scroll through the PDFs on my laptop, pulling up older versions, comparing signatures, timestamps, notes. Every detail that should be boring suddenly feels surgical, precise, wrong. And under the fluorescent lights, with the projector washing the room in a dull blue glow, something clicks, not loudly, quiet. Quiet enough that no one notices, quiet enough that it scares me. The coworker on the beach with him, she had access to his login. She handled approvals for efficiency. He told us that months ago, joked about it. "She signs better than I do," he said once, laughing. We all thought it was harmless. Now I'm staring at proof it wasn't harmless at all. The meeting drones on. People shift in their seats, sigh, nod at the inevitable. I look around the room. Tired faces, defeated eyes, people who trusted him the way I did, people who built entire years of their lives around the belief that our work mattered. They deserve answers. They deserve the truth. I'm not ready to give it to them. Hell, I'm not even ready to fully admit it to myself. But the signatures don't lie. Neither does the ocean sunset posted 90 minutes ago. Near the end of the meeting, the department head asks if anyone wants to say something in reflection. The room goes still. No one volunteers. I almost laugh. What could we say? Sorry for caring. Sorry for trying. My mouth stays shut. My hands stay still. My heartbeat does not. On the last slide, they show the budget breakdown. A neat color-coded pie chart. Clean. Controlled. But there, tucked near the bottom, is a travel expense entry I've never seen. Hawaii. 2 travelers. Project code attached. That's when my breath catches. Not dramatically. Not enough for anyone to notice. Just enough for me to feel something sharp slice through the numbness. I close the laptop, slowly, deliberately, because now I know one thing for sure. The project didn't die from failure. It was buried alive. But that was just the beginning. I didn't leave the room right away. I waited until the others shuffled out. Laptops closing, chairs scraping, people whispering about job openings and severance packages. The way grief turns practical when there's nothing left to fight for. I sat still, staring at the budget slide frozen on the screen, the color-coded mockery of the last 5 years. 2 travelers, Hawaii, charged to our project. I felt something cold, not anger, not shock. Clarity, the kind that strips noise out of the world. When the room finally emptied, I approached the projector table and unplugged the HDMI cable, letting the screen fade to black. I didn't trust myself to think out loud, but I trusted myself enough to know I needed proof. Real proof. Not a photo, not a guess. Something internal. Something with timestamps they couldn't talk their way out of. Downstairs, the office was weirdly quiet. Half the team had gone home. The other half huddled in corners pretending to work because they didn't want to go home to their families and explain what Project Shutdown meant. I passed one of the interns wiping her eyes with her sleeve while typing an email. I nodded at her. Not encouraging, not pity, just acknowledgement. We were all bleeding. Some wounds were just deeper. At my desk, I logged in. My inbox was a graveyard of "thank you for your contribution" emails. HR's version of flowers on the coffin. I ignored them and pulled up internal logs. That's when I saw the first crack widen. The coworker, the one tanning next to him, had submitted 3 approval requests the week the project hit the brakes. Not unusual. What was unusual was the metadata. She submitted them from her IP address at 1:47 a.m., 3 nights in a row. No one works approvals at 1:47 a.m. Not in our department. Not unless they're trying to hide something. I clicked open the oldest file. The signature looked like his, but the pressure strokes were wrong. The angle was off. Digital signatures don't change unless the hand behind them does. I compared them side by side, and the difference was so subtle most people would miss it. But I'd seen his signature hundreds of times. I'd watched him rush it. I'd watched him slow down and make it neat for board documents. I knew its rhythms. This one was an impersonation wearing a mask. I leaned back, heartbeat steady. The coworker had used his login. She had forged his signature. She had approved the cost transfers that starved the project. But I still didn't know why, and part of me wasn't sure I wanted to know. Then a new email appeared in my inbox. Subject, urgent, Hawaii trip agenda. I stared at it, confused for a second. It wasn't sent to me. It was forwarded to me by accident. One of the admin assistants must have typed my name instead of hers. I opened it. My hands didn't shake. My breathing didn't change, but my stomach dropped clean through the floor. The trip wasn't approved as team building or client outreach, like he'd claimed last month. It wasn't even business related. The original request, attached at the bottom, listed it as wellness days for leadership, except the signatures approving the trip were added later, overwritten, edited. The digital timestamp showed the last modification was exactly 2 days before he told us the project was on hold pending review. He stole from the project to pay for his vacation, and he took her with him. And then, because budgets don't stretch, our project suffered. Delays, missing funds, unexpected cuts. Every excuse he gave us was him covering the cost of his own getaway. I felt something hot rise in my chest. Not rage, not humiliation, something heavier. Injustice. The kind that makes your teeth clench slowly, not suddenly. The kind that doesn't shout. It calculates. Before I could process more, the office door swung open behind me. It was Rowan, senior financial analyst, the guy everyone underestimated because he looked like he came from a different decade, suspenders and all. He stopped at my desk, looked at the documents on my screen, and didn't say a word for a solid 5 seconds. Then he breathed out. "So you found it too?" My spine went cold. "Found what?" He pulled up a chair, not a casual gesture, a deliberate one. "You're not the only one who noticed the Hawaii trip hitting the wrong cost center." He pointed at the screen. "They routed part of the hotel charges through procurement. That's how it popped up in our audit queue." "And you didn't escalate it?" I asked. He gave a humorless half-smile. "I did, to the executive director." My pulse skipped. That name carried weight, power, silence. Everyone knew she didn't tolerate incompetence or deceit. "She said she'd look into it," he continued, "but she didn't say when or why I should stay out of it, which tells me it's bigger than fraud." He tapped my screen. "And now you've confirmed the signatures don't match." The room felt suddenly smaller, like the walls had quietly moved closer. "What happens now?" I asked. Rowan hesitated, eyes drifting toward the window as if checking for shadows. "Depends what else gets uncovered." Then he lowered his voice. "But if I were you, I'd get copies. Tonight." Mini catharsis hit me like a controlled exhale. For the first time, I wasn't alone. For the first time, the weight wasn't entirely on my shoulders. But I didn't know it yet. That decision to dig deeper would cost them everything. I saved the files to a secure folder, printed the key pages, and slipped them into my bag. Each printed sheet felt like a brick, heavy, sharp-edged, dangerous. As I packed up for the night, the office lights flickered, motion sensors resetting. The building hummed in that hollow way after hours, when the day's noise leaks out and all that's left is whatever truth you uncovered. Walking to the elevator, I told myself this wasn't personal. It was professional, ethical, necessary. But somewhere under that reasoning, a quieter truth pulsed. They stole 5 years from me. 5 years I can't get back. 5 years they buried to fund a vacation. And I wasn't done. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. The elevator doors slid open to the parking garage, and the shift in temperature hit me like a cue. The air outside the building felt clearer, cleaner, almost like the moment you step out of a room where someone's been lying. I tossed my bag onto the passenger seat and sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, letting my thoughts sort themselves, not emotionally, mechanically, like gears lining up, copies, evidence, a trail they couldn't erase. As I pulled out of the garage, my phone buzzed, the workgroup chat lighting up with a cheerful note from HR reminding us to stay resilient in times of transition. I muted the thread. The hypocrisy felt radioactive. Halfway home, Rowan's words replayed in my mind. She escalated it to the executive director, not to legal, not to compliance, straight to the person who could sink entire careers with one meeting. I didn't know if that comforted me or scared me. At home, I spread the documents across my kitchen table. The signatures, the modified timestamps, the approval logs, the travel receipts. The more I looked, the more one truth sharpened into focus. This wasn't incompetence. It wasn't even negligence. It was strategy. Selfish, reckless, and deliberate. He cannibalized the project to bankroll a personal trip. and she helped him do it. I cross-referenced the approval logs with security badge records. His badge didn't register entry for the days he supposedly signed 3 key approvals. Hers did, at abnormal hours. Their actions weren't sloppy. They were arrogant, confident no one would look closely, confident no one had the stamina to trace the rot. But they didn't consider someone who'd poured 5 years into the project, someone with nothing left to lose. Around midnight, I drafted a short, clean email. No emotion, no commentary. Just attachments and a single line. Per audit request, see relevant discrepancies. And I addressed it to the one person whose name alone could rearrange the hierarchy. The executive director. Not CC'd, not forwarded. Direct. Before hitting send, I hesitated. Not out of fear, but out of understanding. Once I clicked, there was no one clicking, no pretending I hadn't seen what I'd seen, no stepping back into anonymity. I hit send. It felt like pushing the first domino in a line I hadn't fully mapped out yet. The next morning, the temperature in the office was different. Not physically, atmospherically. Conversations were shorter. Eyes moved faster. Doors closed more softly. Whatever had been simmering beneath the surface was now boiling, and the people who sensed danger were already trying to figure out where it was coming from. I didn't know what the executive director planned to do, or how quickly she'd act, but I knew one thing. She didn't let things slide. Ever. Around 11, Rowan walked past my desk and paused without sitting. She saw it, he murmured. All of it. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. He added, "They get back from Hawaii tonight. Just thought you'd want the timeline." I felt a quiet click inside my chest. Not happiness, not revenge. Alignment. The moment when truth and consequence finally begin to overlap. Later that afternoon, an email went out from the executive director's office. Mandatory leadership meeting. 8 a.m. next morning. No agenda, no explanation. That alone told a story. The real shift came at 6:42 p.m. when I stopped by my desk to grab my coat and noticed a new voicemail notification. Internal line, unmarked. I listened through one earbud, his voice, my boss. Jittery. Too quick. "Hey, I heard there were some questions about the expense reallocations. Let's connect when I'm back. I think there's some confusion." Confusion. That word people use when they know the floor beneath them is cracking. I deleted the message without saving it. Walking out of the building, I felt something I hadn't felt since the project died. Gravity. The sensation that events were pulling forward, with or without my permission. That something larger had entered the room. By the time I got home, I wasn't hungry. I wasn't tired. I was waiting. Around 9:15 p.m., my phone buzzed, an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But then a voice spoke, low, controlled, unmistakably hers, the executive director. "Thank you for forwarding the materials," she said. "Your attention to detail is precise." It wasn't a compliment. It was an evaluation. I responded with something neutral. She didn't elaborate. Instead, she said, "There will be follow-up in the coming days. If you're contacted by anyone regarding the information, direct them to my office." Then silence. Then she ended with 4 words that made the hairs on my arms rise. "I saw everything myself." Not, "I reviewed the documents." Not, "I will investigate." Not, "We'll handle this internally." I saw everything myself. Meaning, she didn't just examine the proof. She watched the cause. She witnessed the behavior. She had already drawn her own conclusions before I ever sent a thing. That realization hit me like a quiet explosion, a micro-catharsis I didn't expect. For the first time since this all started, I wasn't fighting uphill. I wasn't the lone voice in a collapsing room. I wasn't the guy pointing at smoke while everyone else insisted it was fog. Someone with real authority saw the fire. And tomorrow morning, the people who lit it would walk straight into her office thinking they could charm, spin, or excuse their way out. They were wrong. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. and neither was the truth. And then silence, the kind that means something's gone wrong. The office at 7:58 a.m. felt like the moment before a storm hits. People weren't talking, they were whispering. Screens glowed brighter than usual, as if the monitors themselves were waiting for something. My boss's door remained closed, the lights off, the chair empty. He hadn't returned my non-existent calls, and I hadn't expected him to. He probably walked in this morning thinking he just needed a clarification meeting. He had no idea what was waiting for him. At exactly 8, the executive director's assistant appeared in the hallway and said 4 words that froze everyone's breathing. "They're ready for you." The coworker walked toward the boardroom first, trying to look confident but failing, her smile trembling at the corners. My boss followed, face pale from the red-eye flight, eyes darting like he was looking for exits in walls that had none. The door closed behind them with a soft click. And then the silence. Not office silence, not polite silence. Predatory silence, the kind that means something inside that room just broke. I didn't move. I didn't pretend to work. I just sat at my desk, listening to the hum of overhead lights, the thrum of HVAC, the faint echo of muffled voices. 30 minutes passed, then 40, then 50. At 1 hour and 7 minutes, the door opened. She walked out first, the coworker, eyes red, mouth tight, clutching her bag against her chest, like she was afraid someone might rip it from her. She wasn't crying. She was past crying. She looked like someone who'd just seen the inside of a future she didn't want to enter. My boss came out next, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked small, shoulders caved in, complexion gray, tie crooked. He wasn't angry. He wasn't defensive. He was hollow. He glanced around, searching the office like he expected someone to stand up for him. No one did. People lowered their eyes. A few turned back to their screens. One person walked away entirely. He passed my desk, didn't say a word, didn't ask questions, didn't even pause, just kept walking toward HR like a man following a line someone else drew for him. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. 10 minutes later, an announcement appeared in everyone's inbox at once. Effective immediately, leadership transitions will occur. Interim oversight will be assigned. Clean, neutral, corporate. But every person in that room understood exactly what it meant. By noon, both of them were gone. Security escorted them quietly, without spectacle, through the side exit. The kind of exit used for people whose presence shouldn't alarm the building. At 3 p.m., I was called to the executive director's office. Her space was minimal, glass, steel, quiet. She studied me for a moment, eyes sharp, assessing. Not cold, just exact. "You submitted the documented discrepancies," she said, accurately, without editorializing. That matters. I nodded, unsure if I should speak. She folded her hands. "I'm reopening development on your project." I blinked. "I thought it was terminated." "It was?" she said. "Now it isn't." A pause. "We need someone who understands the system, the failures, the potential." Her gaze didn't shift. "Someone who wasn't part of the problem." A second passed, then another. "You'll oversee the rebuild," she continued, "if you want it." If I want it. 5 years of sacrifice, strain, setbacks. Handed back not as pity, but as responsibility. I didn't thank her immediately. I didn't rush. I let the weight settle before answering. "I want it." She nodded once. Precise. Final. "Then it's yours?" Walking out of her office, I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot I didn't realize had been tightening for years. By the time I reached the parking lot, the sky was a soft blue-gray, the kind that smells faintly of rain. I drove home with the window cracked, letting the cold air wash over me. No calls from him, no messages from her. Nothing but clean quiet. That evening I made dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and garlic and a glass of something cheap but warm. I sat by the window, watching the streetlights blink on one by one. For the first time in months, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. I didn't check social media. I didn't look up Hawaii photos. I didn't go searching for explanations or apologies. Some endings don't need speeches. Some truths don't need witnesses. Some justice doesn't need noise. They had buried the project. They had buried the truth. They had buried 5 years of my life. And now they were gone, and the project wasn't. When I finally turned off the lights and let the apartment go dark, I didn't feel victorious, or righteous, or vindicated. I felt something simpler, something cleaner, something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace.